Welcome to The Birth Breakdown, a mini-sode series from Her Birth, Her Story. These short episodes are here to open conversations around pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. Things I believe that every woman deserves to look into, to question, and just to feel empowered by. This isn't about telling you what to do, what's right, or what's wrong. It's about giving you space to think, to learn, and to ask questions, to just trust yourself a little bit more as you prepare for your birth. So let's break it down. On today's birth breakdown, we are going to be breaking down those first trimester symptoms. This is especially important for our first-time moms who don't even know what to expect at all. So we are going to go into all of the very common things, why you're experiencing it, maybe some suggestions that could help from a medical perspective and from a holistic perspective. And then we're going to jump into some red flag symptoms that might be more concerning, that then you definitely should contact your provider or even make a trip into the hospital if you are experiencing these red flag symptoms. Okay, so the first one that we're going to jump into is extreme exhaustion. And I'm not just saying like, man, I could use a nap. No, I'm talking about like you literally randomly fall asleep because you are that tired. I definitely can say that that has been the biggest symptom that I have definitely had in all my pregnancies. And the more that you have, I'm learning the more exhausted that you are. So one of the reasons for this is because your hormones are changing so much and progesterone is rising dramatically, which also has like a sedative effect on your body. And also at the same time, don't forget, you are literally building the placenta, increasing your blood volume, growing a whole human, and so your metabolism is working overtime. From a medical perspective, some things you could look into doing are obviously rest when you can, especially if this is your first baby. Definitely soak up resting when you can, because when you have multiple babies, the time windows of you being able to do that is just less and less. It's a little bit harder. Obviously, make sure you're staying hydrated, eating regular meals to make sure that your blood sugar is stable. Just like we've said multiple times too, reach out to your provider, get some blood work done, test your iron, test your thyroid, make sure that everything is functioning how it should be in pregnancy. Because if your fatigue is severe or very persistent, one of these things might be a little bit more out of whack. So you need some additional help to get it back in whack. Some holistic ideas too that kind of go along with some of the medical stuff is prioritizing protein at every single meal, eating those iron-rich foods paired with vitamin C. That's crucial. Get the morning sunlight to really support your circadian rhythm. Take those short walks if you can, and don't feel guilty about naps, because if you can take a nap, nap. The next one we did a whole episode over is nausea and vomiting. This is happening once again because your HCG levels are rising very quickly. Your estrogen also is doing that same thing to really affect your stomach and your brain. Slower digestion from progesterone also contributes. And also, like we said in the episode 2, your nausea and vomiting can contribute to just a primal protective means of just helping the moms avoid foods that could potentially be harmful for fetal development. So a medical perspective, a lot of times they can obviously prescribe you an anti-nausea medication. Also, staying hydrated and even looking into vitamin B6 is good. Some holistic ways to combat this would be ginger, small frequent meals, protein before you get out of bed, electrolytes, and some people think that peppermint is very helpful, but it's not always right for everybody. The next symptom that you might not realize is breast tenderness. Your hormones are rising, your blood flow is increasing. This is preparing your breasts for breastfeeding to make milk. So some things that can help with that from a medical perspective is obviously wearing a supportive bra and using different medications to help with the pain, obviously recommended by your provider. Some holistic ideas is also wearing like loose soft bras and using warm or cool compresses and just avoiding any unnecessary pressure to your breasts as well. The next symptom that you might be experiencing is frequent urination. This is also because your HCG is increasing blood flow to your kidneys. And so this is making you have to pee more. And as you continue to grow in pregnancy, your growing uterus is putting pressure on your bladder, so it can continue to where you literally are peeing all the time. So some perspectives to some things that you can look into is obviously staying hydrated. Do not cut back on your fluids to stop peeing, because that's not going to help and that's not beneficial for you or the baby. So some holistic ideas as well is just try to space your hydration throughout the day versus chugging a bunch of water right before you go to bed. Easier said than done. Make sure that you're emptying your bladder completely each time. The next symptom that a lot of people don't realize is the bloating, and it's severe bloating. It doesn't just feel like, oh, I'm a little bloated today. No, it literally feels like you're already, especially the more pregnancies that you have, I have learned that it literally feels like you're already like 4 months pregnant because you are so bloated. But that is because progesterone relaxes those smooth muscles, including your digestive tract, slowing down digestion, which also equates to more bloating, more space, and it can be very uncomfortable sometimes. But from a medical perspective, honestly, a lot of times they just say, well, this is normal. Some holistic ideas that go along with this are walking after your meals, eat more slowly, eat those smaller meals, make sure you're staying hydrated, and just make sure that you're getting enough fiber gradually. The next one that a lot of people experience as well is constipation. This is also because your progesterone slows your intestinal movement down. And so if you are also taking an iron supplement, make sure that you're watching that, because that can also contribute to constipation as well. Definitely look into fiber, hydrating. Physical activity actually does help with the constipation. And from a medical perspective, sometimes they will recommend stool softeners by your provider. Some holistic ideas is eating kiwi, prunes, chia seeds. Make sure that you're eating magnesium-rich foods, making sure that you're intaking enough healthy fats. And if you can, warm lemon water sometimes really helps with that as well. We always talk about the bloating and the constipation, but no one ever really talks about the gas. I mean, literally, I feel like you think that you are the gassiest person on the planet, whether it's burping or farting. I mean, it is literally gas central. And that is because, just like I've said before, you have a lot slower digestion right now, which gives gut bacteria more time to ferment its food, creating more gas. Listen, this is generally harmless, but some things that you can still do to maybe help with it a little bit: walk after your meals, eat more slowly, identify foods that maybe worsen it a little bit more, and just stay hydrated. Now, this next one can be very confusing sometimes, and honestly, this one ends up being kind of one of the more scarier ones that people do freak out about, is mild cramping. The uterus is growing, your ligaments are stretching, and implantation, especially in that first trimester, right when you're finding out that, hey, you're pregnant, implantation can sometimes cause this mild cramping very early on. And if it is mild and it's not followed with heavy bleeding or severe pain or anything like that, then it's normally normal. And some holistic ideas to just help with that is hydration, rest, some gentle stretching. Don't overdo it. And warm, not hot, heating pad on a lower setting if your provider approves of that. But I do know that this one, especially if you have experienced a miscarriage, this one can be very gut-wrenching just because you're kind of waiting to see, is there going to be bleeding or is there not? And just know that mild cramping is normal as long as it is not followed by heavy bleeding, severe pain. And the next one that shocks people is increased vaginal discharge. Your higher estrogen levels plus your increased blood flow increase that normal vaginal discharge. And just remember that this discharge is like a thin milky, mid-smelling discharge. That is common. If it is any other color and it looks like infection of a color and you have itching and burning or anything like that, or you feel like you're leaking because it feels more like pee or more like a water versus like a discharge, make sure that you seek your provider. But some ideas to help with this is wearing breathable cotton underwear. Don't wear super tight underwear and try to make sure that's cotton. Just maintain your normal hygiene without using harsh, irritating soaps. The next one is mood swings. Yeah, your hormonal changes, fatigue, stress, and just the emotional adjustment to pregnancy can all contribute to these crazy mood swings, the random crying. You're crying at happy things, you're crying at sad things, you're crying because you're mad. Yeah, I get it. Definitely these are common, but just make sure that if you have persistent depression or anxiety, make sure you reach out to a provider. And some holistic ideas that might be able to help with these a little bit is prioritizing your sleep, exercising, time outdoors, prayer, writing in a journal, and just finding that supportive community that loves on you the best. The next is acne. Yeah, androgens stimulate that oil production. And it's just so funny because sometimes, and this is one of those wives' tales too, where, oh, if you're having a girl, you'll have acne. If you're having a boy, your face looks flawless. There probably is some truth to that for some women, but not all the time. But yeah, some women are experiencing the glowing, no pimples, beautiful face, and some women are breaking out like crazy, especially in that first trimester. So from a medical perspective, if you are somebody that struggles with acne, make sure that you're talking with your provider about acne medication if you are currently on that, or if you're wanting to do something like that, because a lot of them are not recommended to use during pregnancy. Some holistic ideas as well is obviously just a gentle skincare. Avoid over cleansing your face and staying hydrated, eating a well-balanced diet. The next one is headaches. This can happen for multiple different reasons. Just remember, your hormones are changing like crazy. You have increased blood volume. Dehydration ends up being a big key factor. Fatigue, having those aversions to coffee, so you're having a caffeine withdrawal, and low blood sugar can all contribute to a headache. From a medical perspective, obviously, hydrate, rest. And if your provider says it would be appropriate, then maybe taking an acetaminophen, obviously chat with your provider. Some holistic ideas too are making sure that you're eating regular meals and staying hydrated. And I cannot stress this enough, that staying hydrated does not just mean drinking water. And I want to say that again because I think we all forget that it's actually replenishing minerals so that you're hydrating on a cellular level. So hydrating does not just mean drinking water. So sometimes what you can do too is obviously make sure that you're drinking filtered water, but putting a little pinch of high quality sea salt, high quality Celtic salt, high quality Redmond salt, just putting a little pinch in there, that already can help you. Or if you have trace minerals, put a little bit of the trace minerals in there. Add some lemon to your water. Doing those little things can actually help hydrate you. And I mean, obviously you can always do an electrolyte packet. Just be careful with the sugar content as well. But also eating magnesium-rich foods, gentle neck stretches, because sometimes it's just stress, and limiting your screen time, because if you're on your phone a lot or you're bending your neck a lot, or looking at that blue light, sometimes that can also trigger headaches. The next one also surprises a lot of people too, which is dizziness. And this happens because your blood vessels start to relax, your blood pressure may drop because your blood volume is increasing, and blood sugar fluctuations are common during this time as well. And this really happens between like the 9 to 12 weeks of when you notice this even more. But just try to get up more slowly and just stay hydrated. Hydration is just really a key to every one of these symptoms. Make sure you're eating protein-rich snacks, electrolytes, avoid standing for really long periods of time, and compression socks if your provider recommends them. This is one of the more weird symptoms, and that's when you're having this like metallic taste in your mouth. Like, I don't know, like it's almost like you licked a coin and you just have that like taste in your mouth. And it's really hard to explain anyway. It's just like a metal taste, but it's usually harmless and usually just temporary as your body's going through these big changes. But it's because your hormonal changes all alter your sense of taste. And so citrus sometimes might help with that. Gum can sometimes help, and just really making sure that you have good oral hygiene. And a lot of times with this, cold foods often taste better because it feels like it like chills out the metallic taste. Excess saliva. Some women just produce more saliva, especially if they are more nauseous or have more vomiting. It's normally harmless, but a little frustrating because it's like, why? But just frequent sips of water, gum, hard candy, small meals, all of those things can also help with the nausea and vomiting as well. And another weird one that people just think like, what in the world? Like, you don't know, like, am I coming down with something, or is this like a pregnancy symptom? And that is congestion. And it's actually kind of weird because with my first, I did not experience it, but with my second, I did. So I'll be really curious to see if for my body, if that's like a boy versus girl thing, season of life, because I was literally pregnant the same time of year with my first as I was my second, because they are 3 years apart, but their birthdays are 4 days apart. So I'll be curious to see that. But this happens because your higher estrogen increases the blood flow and swelling to your nasal passages. And normally this is called pregnancy rhinitis. And so I think that's actually kind of a cool thing just to know that congestion does not automatically mean sickness. In pregnancy, it can actually be a symptom. So sometimes using the saline nasal spray and humidifiers really do help. And some holistic ideas too are using steam from a shower, a humidifier, obviously hydration, and saline rinses if you are comfortable. Next one's not as common, but it can happen, and many people do experience this as a symptom, but that is nosebleeds. And just like we've said too, your blood volume has increased and those tiny blood vessels in your nose just become a lot more fragile. And I will say too that there's a lot of different places on your body that have more blood volume that become a little bit more fragile too, that can also have bleeding. But this is usually harmless. And just like how you would take on the congestion, humidifier, saline rinses, try to avoid aggressively nose blowing. And sometimes if you just apply some like coconut oil under or the inside of your nostrils, if you're having like dryness as the problem of continuing to bleed and not like a deeper nosebleed. Food aversions, we already did a whole episode over that, so I'm not going to go into huge detail, but once again, your hormones are heightening your smell and your taste, and the aversions are often used as one of those primal protecting mechanisms to keep you and your baby safe during this time. Completely normal, and just really focus on getting the proper nutrition in. And honestly, just like I said too, worry about it day to day and try to prioritize it day to day, that you are making sure you're getting enough of the important nutrients in your body. And remember, do not rely solely on your prenatal. That is a supplement, not something that just automatically gives you everything that is beneficial for you for a day. Some holistic ideas is do not force foods that make you gag. Focus on nutrient-dense foods and experiment with different textures and temperatures, because like for instance, carrots might not be the problem. It might be cooked carrots versus cold raw carrots. So just look into that as well. And one thing too that actually might be very, very beneficial are smoothies. And you can actually hide a lot of things in smoothies that you can't really taste. So maybe experiment with that a little bit. If you're really struggling getting certain nutrients and vitamins into your body, find those foods that you can hide in a smoothie that then can taste good, but you can still make sure that you are getting in your body. Okay, this last one that we're going to go over is one of the weirdest things ever. It is a normal symptom. I have had this with every single one of my pregnancies, and some of these dreams are insane. The amount of vivid dreams that you have is crazy. So you've had those hormonal changes. You're getting lighter sleep, especially if you're getting up to pee, or you're just like feeling a little uncomfortable and just processing all the emotions of pregnancy, these all contribute to more vivid, memorable dreams. Once again, this is very common and it is a very harmless part of pregnancy, but the best thing to try to help with this is just maintaining your routine, limiting screens before bed, journaling about your dreams, especially if they're like causing you anxiety. For me, I just had really weird, odd dreams that honestly just seemed like it was out of like a dramatic storyline. I don't know. It was weird. It wasn't actually anything that was like real. I don't know how to explain it. And then also just practicing your relaxation techniques and prayer before bed. And I also want to say too that just because all of these symptoms are common does not mean that you have to experience all of them or any of them. If you are experiencing all of these or none of these, does not automatically mean that something is wrong. So just know that these are just the most common ones. And I'm sure there's other outliers out there, but these ones are many of the most reported for women. So now the last thing that I want to jump into are some red flags. And these are things that you should contact your provider as soon as you can, because these are not normal. If you are experiencing heavy bleeding, so if your bleeding is like a dark color, it is a lot of it. And it's not just like if you wipe, it's not just like a watery pinkish red. If it is like period, call. If you're having severe cramping, not just like like before you start your period and you're just getting those mild, like yucky cramps, or if you've already had a baby, when you first go into early labor, you're getting those like period like cramps. If it is something that is a lot more severe than that, like you need to like breathe through and it's just a lot and you've never really experienced that before, call your provider. If you are having very intense unsighted pain, call your provider. If you are having a persistent fever that keeps on going, call your provider. If you are experiencing severe hydration to where your urine is very dark, you are very dizzy, you are passing out, I feel like you'd be able to tell if you're in the severe dehydration, not just if you're thirsty, but it is severe, call your provider. If you can't keep any fluids down, call your provider. If you have loss of consciousness, I hope somebody calls your provider, because that is obviously not good. Painful urination, any itching, burning, or even internally where anytime you pee, it's painful, call your provider. If you have fluid leaking, call your provider. Sometimes I know this can be hard to justify too, because you're like, am I peeing or am I not? I feel like you will be able to tell if your fluid is leaking because it's different than peeing. It's basically fluid, it's liquid coming out without you like pushing to pee. If you have any kind of vision changes, call your provider. And anything that just simply feels wrong and you want peace of mind, trust your intuition and just call your provider. Calling your provider, talking about it, there's no harm done to that. And you know what? Call your provider as many times as you want. Even if you're experiencing one of the normal symptoms and you want to double check, talk to your provider, because that's why they're there. So I hope that this episode was really helpful. I know that it's a longer one than normal, but I feel like in the first trimester, that is always, especially when it's your first, that's always the biggest thing, because you're like in this waiting game of, you're not even going to your first appointment until at least 10 weeks. And sometimes it's 12, which is like literally you're getting ready to get in your second trimester. So you're just playing this 3-month waiting game, and it can be really hard. And so a lot of times when it's your first time and you don't know what to expect, you're a lot more anxious when it comes to all of these symptoms, because all you want is a healthy baby, a healthy pregnancy. And so I hope that this is really helpful for you. And just know that pregnancy is full of normal symptoms that really can feel scary, especially when you don't know, but just trust your instincts no matter what. Even if somebody says it's normal and you're like, no, I feel like something's wrong, trust your instincts. You right now are having those motherly instincts that are growing, because guess what? You are growing a human, and I just think it's amazing. So if you're ever unsure, it's okay to call your provider. And if they give you any trouble with just asking about even things that are normal, find a new provider. please, because they are there to help you, to reassure you, and that is why they're there. So I hope this episode was helpful, and we'll see you in the next one. If this episode sparked curiosity, affirmed something you've been feeling, or just gave you a whole new perspective, I'd love for you to share it with another mom or mom-to-be who might need it. Make sure you're following Her Birth, Her Story, and if you feel called, leaving a review is one of the best ways to support this space. And it just helps these conversations to reach more women. Until next time, remember this is your body, your baby, and your birth. We are reclaiming birth one story at a time. I also want to add this disclaimer that this is not to be taken as medical advice. Please make sure that if you are seeking medical advice, then reach out to your own provider so that you can figure out what is best for you.